first of all, thank each and every single one of you for joining the Office of Nightlife call today for owners and operators. Really, it is needless to say that these are really unprecedented and very scary times for everyone. And this really isn't just a question of your livelihoods, but your lives as well. Nightclubs and bars and restaurants are really small families. Your staff are your families, your customers are your families. And we really do recognize the importance of making sure that hospitality gets back on track as fast as possible. There's not a lot of all the answers that everyone wants right now, but there are some, and the rest will unfold. And we're here today to share as much as we can to provide some guidance and clarity and some updates as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ariel Palitz. I am the Senior Executive Director for the Office of Nightlife at the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. I was appointed 2 years ago to this brand new office that never really existed before to make sure that nightlife had a seat at the table in government and in the administration, and that we can serve as a central point of contact to make sure that your needs, your concerns, your fears, your ideas are being communicated to the administration and to all levels of government, and also that we are able to share the information that you need that is coming from government. And so that is really what we're here to do today. You know, the office was really established by the mayor and also Congress Council Member Rafael Espinal at the time to really make sure that nightlife is fair. And that it works for everyone. And never in our wildest dreams did we really think it would be needed for this, but here we are. I'm hoping everyone is on. I guess we're still waiting for John. You know, a lot of you also, I guess, on the call should realize that, you know, we did an economic study about the nightlife industry. And this is a $35.1 billion industry for New York. It supports 300,000 jobs. We're not just on the short list of essential businesses that should be open. We should be the first. The nightlife should be the first essential business to open as well. And so I think it's important to realize that the city does recognize how much this industry does contribute. Right here today, we are fulfilling our mandate to make sure that nightlife is getting heard and that you're getting the information that you need. One way that we are making sure that your voice is being heard now, I know a lot of people are going through a lot, and I think it's important for you to know that we are hearing you and communicating those concerns. One way we did that, and I want to thank everyone who participated in the preliminary survey that we administered, which was meant to give an immediate snapshot on the sudden impact. There were nearly 12,000 participants who took the survey. And what we found out should not and would not surprise any of you, that, that there is real widespread economic pain upon the industry. And what we did was we took the data that we found out on that survey and we shared it with City Hall as well as the House of Representatives to make sure that that data is helping to inform and shape the future stimuluses that are coming down the pike, and to make sure that the changes that need to be made are being communicated to those who have the power to do so. We will also be sharing that information with all of you as the process unfolds. The preliminary purpose of the survey was really to be able to share it with policymakers, because again, the findings are really not surprising to those who took it. We know that nightlife has been hit harder than many other industries. And many of the questions are about how are we going to get open? How are you going to open? What is it going to look like? The recovery questions are still down the road a little bit, and they will unfold. And there are many unanswered questions. Again, right now, we really want to focus on the stabilization phase and the new developments that have come. There are many people on this call today, and so the format of this will be essentially, we will have brief presentations by our panelists, and we will take the questions that we took from the survey, as well as from our outreach to you, as well as the questions that were submitted in the RSVPs, and we will be presenting those questions to the panelists. And then along the way, you can add additional clarifying questions in the Q&A, and our Deputy Director, Jose Sogard, will be asking those clarifying questions. So your voices and concerns that are arising throughout this call will also be addressed in the last 20 to 25 minutes. So that's essentially the introduction. Now I'm going to introduce our speakers. One of the powers and abilities of the Office of Nightlife is really to convene the government officials and the experts to answer your questions directly. So first I'm going to introduce Gregg Bishop, who is the Commissioner of New York City's Department of Small Businesses. Gregg, please go.
Thanks, Ariel, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful to Ariel and, of course, the entire Office of Nightlife team to have this opportunity to speak with you today. I'm also appreciative of my colleagues on this panel, Beth and John from the SBA, which has been so vital for us as we, experience this unprecedented time. And of course, Andrew, it's good to see you from the Hospitality Alliance, and thank you for all your advocacy for this community. And of course, my colleagues in government. I hope everyone is finding themselves and their families well and in good health. And I would be remiss if I did not thank you for, doing your part and making sure that you stay at home. And as our city hospitals continue to deal with the onslaught of new COVID-19 patients, it's important that our resources and energy are supported or focused on supporting those that are most in need. And also want to thank our first responders and healthcare workers. I also want to thank you, the business owners. I know there are some of you who are providing much needed food to our first responders, either by donation. So it's a telling sign that our small businesses are such a strong fabric of our community. We've dealt with disasters in the past, and of course, from 9/11 to Hurricane Sandy to the Flatiron Steam Pipe explosion. However, this is unprecedented, and I know the pain that many of you are feeling right now as you continue to figure out how to weather not only your health, but also this economic crisis. And working with partners on all levels, it's so important for us to come together to figure out how we could come out of this much stronger. We at SBS, we focused a lot on early on, and we designed 2 different programs that at the time was focused on some of the businesses that were experiencing challenges in February and late January. In a week's time, those programs were obsolete. And when I say obsolete, meaning they were not necessarily built to deal with the challenges that we saw today. They were only built to be a stopgap measure to a federal response. I'm really happy that our partners at the federal government really stepped up to assist our small businesses by passing the CARES Act. I know Beth and John may go over some of the programs, but I just want to say that, the program from legislation, and now I think we're in day 14 or so, from signing the legislation to 2 weeks, we've had programs implemented really quickly at impressive scale. I know there are some frustrations on whether or not certain lenders are participating or not participating, et cetera. I know there are frustrations in terms of getting feedback, not only from our local programs, but from our federal programs. We are all operating as quickly as possible, and we are also staffing up and continue to provide and assistance all throughout, and weekends, late nights, etc. Because we all are trying to do the best that we can. So I just want to thank my partners at the SBA for all that you do. We will, the two programs that we launched, which was the Employee Retention Grant, if you have applied and you have not heard from us, we are going through those applications and you will hear from us. We have sunset that program April 3rd as a result of the SBA's Paycheck Protection Program launching. And due to overwhelming interest, our NYC Business Continuity Loan Fund is also, we've paused accepting applications as of April 8th. But we are providing technical assistance to help businesses find counterparts in the SBA's Emergency Income Disaster Loan and Paycheck Protection programs. We will be reviewing submitted applications for our programs on a first come, first served basis until funds are exhausted. We're doing everything we can to communicate with our partners and constituents, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. So we've tried to make our information available through social media, email distribution lists, etc. If you want to keep up with what is happening and what's changing, I advise you to go to nyc.gov/COVID19BIZ and sign up for our email list. We send out guidance through that list on everything that small businesses need to be aware of. One of the newest programs that we will be adding is our partners at City Bar recently launched a small business remote legal clinic via the City Justice Center's Neighborhood Entrepreneur Law Project to assist small businesses impacted by COVID-19 as it relates to navigating insurance-related claims, contracts, leases, and accessing state and federal program. This is so important for those of you with business interruption insurance, and I know Andrew will talk a little bit about some of the things we agree with in terms of advocating for this as a covered event. But if you have not spoken to your insurance company, I suggest you take advantage of speaking to an attorney, having them look at your policy and see what we could possibly, it is a long shot, but what we could possibly do. And how you can speak to your broker to figure out whether or not this is covered. Most business interruption insurance do have a clause that exempts virus. However, our executive order also added on a piece about physical damage. So therefore, if you have an attorney, have them take a look at that. If you don't have an attorney, you can access this free service at their website, which is citybarjusticecenter.org. citybarjusticecenter.org, or you can come to our site and we'll make the referral to you. I also want to make sure that people are very cautious. There is a number of websites and emails that are fraudulently claiming to represent government financing programs on the local and state and federal level. So please be wary. I know my partners will talk about this, but if you are applying, there's only a couple places you can apply. You can either apply through your lender, sba.gov for certain programs, and make sure it's sba.gov, not com. And then certainly if you have a trusted lender or CDFI organization that you've worked with that's providing you technical assistance, you can refer to them for assistance. If you are unclear, then come to us. Our NYC Business Solution Centers we have gone remotely, but we are providing technical assistance, and we are also providing technical assistance in several different languages. So that is my update for now. And of course, I am here to answer a lot of your questions. And of course, I look forward to hearing updates from my colleagues as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Greg. And we will be posing more questions that I know hopefully you'll have some more answers to as well. I realize I didn't really mention everyone who was on the panel today. In addition to Greg Bishop, next up we have Beth Goldberg and John Milano. Beth is the district director for the New York District Office of the United States Small Business Administration, that's the SBA, and John Milano is her deputy director. We're very lucky to have them both here to provide a lot of clarity on the existing programs and perhaps offer some insight into some of the other products that SBA has. And then we will be hearing from Liz Vladek, who is the Senior Labor Policy Advisor to City Hall, and of course, Andrew Rigie, who is the chair of the Nightlife Advisory Board and the president of the New York Hospitality Alliance. So we have a very good group here and hoping to get as much information as possible to you. So Beth, I'd love to open up the floor to you as well as to John and to introduce yourself to everyone.
Thank you, Ariel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank God.
Oh, great. So for everyone, the reason I asked John to join me is that I'm sitting in the dark in a power outage. So we figured our distance might allow one of us to be on the phone with you at any given time. As everyone knows, the SBA, sorry?
I said, thank you for doing this in the dark. It's challenging enough.
Right, in the dark, and however long my battery lasts is how long you have me. Working along with our partner, Commissioner Gregg Bishop, we all try to serve the small business community in a number of different ways. We've become wide known in this disaster for our economic injury loan and advance, as well as our Paycheck Protection Program. I know during the question and answers we'll go over different aspects of the program. What I'd like people to keep in mind as they listen, the Paycheck Protection Program is an 8-week program for basically payroll to either keep your employees on staff or to rehire people that you have let go. With very little funding going toward your rent, mortgage interest, utilities, healthcare, health insurance. So those are allowable costs, but the economic injury loan is a 6-month program, thinking more long-term about those costs as well. You are allowed to apply for both. You're not allowed to receive a loan if you duplicate what the sources, the uses of the money is going to be. But if you can separate that, your payroll for the 8 weeks under the Payroll Protection Program and put your other expenses into EIDL, you may be able to cash flow yourselves for a longer period of time. And I think, unless John has anything to add right now, I think it's best to answer your questions, which are more specific about the programs. Oh, the other thing that I do want to say is that along with Gregg's shop that's preparing help, we have SCORE, our volunteers, women business centers, 5 of them in the district, and 12 university-based small business development centers where there are advisors available for free to help businesses sort of figure out their particular situation and what's best for them to do.
Okay, thank you. John, did you want to chime in here? Are you still on the call? It looks like we may have lost John.
Okay.
Interestingly.
All right. Oh, he has no audio, he said. He can, there's no audio.
Kevin, if you could please contact John directly and make sure he can either call in or can video himself back in here. I think, you know, we'll go around the room and then we'll get to the question specifically. I think Liz Vladek, if you are able to join the call, again, Senior Labor Policy Advisor to City Hall.
Good morning, everybody. Very glad to be here and have the chance to talk to you. I want to focus the couple of minutes of your time that I want to take on the unemployment insurance system, because that is such an expansive part of how we're all thinking about this recovery. I will pause for a second to say, obviously, we all know that there have been new paid sick leave and paid family leave protections, and I really encourage you to visit the website of the city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. If you enter nyc.gov/workers, you'll land on a starting page that actually has a very handy chart setting forth how the federal, state, and local paid sick and family laws interact. But I did want to focus on unemployment because it's complicated and it's new and implementation is bumpy. To be clear, I'm sure folks have heard that a big part of what Congress did with the CARES Act was they extended who is eligible for unemployment benefits. Very critically, they are actually describing, and we are describing, eligibility under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program as specifically being for folks who ordinarily would not qualify for unemployment insurance. So that means people who file taxes via a 1099, independent contractors, freelancers, people who are self-employed, even small business owners, as long as their income is derived from actually operating the business and doing that work. What our State Department of Labor has communicated about this eligibility is essentially there's a high likelihood that you are eligible for these expanded benefits or regular benefits if you have lost your job or lost hours of your job for any COVID-related reason. The only scenarios where you can assume you're probably not eligible, maybe yet, for unemployment is if you're on paid leave of some kind, paid sick leave, paid family leave. Very quickly, I want to mention, I'm sure you've heard as well, pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. This adds 13 weeks to New York State's 26 weeks of time that someone can collect benefits. And pandemic unemployment compensation is an extra $600 that will come if you're receiving any benefits at all. That extra $600 will also be coming on a weekly basis. In terms of applying for unemployment and how this process works, if anybody has been attempting to apply or has been in contact with their employees who have been attempting to apply or has been reading the newspapers, then you know that the process of submitting applications for unemployment insurance has been, I think miserable is like a fair word without too much editorializing. Very important update is that on Friday, our State Department of Labor launched a new application program, which they built in collaboration with a few, pretty high profile tech companies, so that if you haven't applied yet and you're going to start a new application, this will be a very much easier, more streamlined process. You may not have to talk to anyone at all. For those who've been trying to file and have not been able to complete a claim, DOL advises they are going to call you. And you need to be prepared that it'll probably be a call from someone from a private number because DOL's staff are calling from their own homes. So if this applies to you, keep your phone handy and pick it up even if you don't know who's calling you. Let me say one or two other quick things. First, notwithstanding this very broad expansion of eligibility, which is great, determination of eligibility is still a very individualized process. There's any number of reasons that someone might or might not qualify. And I think we all need to be prepared that for those applying under this expanded program who would not ordinarily be eligible, we don't have clear guidance yet from DOL about any information that might be different that we would need to submit for our claims. We can say for sure that you start the process exactly the same way, no matter what scenario describes you. It's the State Department of Labor website, dol.gov. I want to say one more quick thing and then two more quick things and then be quiet. Undocumented workers are not undocumented workers, I'm sure you know this, are not eligible for unemployment benefits and or most of the other benefits flowing from the CARES Act and recent legislation. Yeah, my 6-year-old's headphones are dying, but you got to wait 1 minute, sweetie. So if you have employees or you yourself, if this applies to you, please engage with with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, which is doing lightning fast work to try to get some philanthropic dollars available to folks who are not eligible for government support. Tipped workers, the State Department of Labor determines your benefit eligibility based on, no, I can't right now. Based on, Sash, sorry. Based on how much income you've reported. And so if there's been underreporting, that's the income that the State Department of Labor is going to look at. In any case, if you don't agree with this Department of Labor's determination about something, you have the right to appeal. The last thing I want to say is that I am very curious. I want to frame this very clearly as an open question to which I have not seen an answer yet. There is an unemployment program called short-time compensation, which is designed to help employers proactively keep their doors open by reducing the hours of their employees and having the state DOL, the state unemployment system, supplement the lost wages with an unemployment benefit. And especially as we start to understand some of the limitations on the Paycheck Protection Program, I am going to be monitoring very closely whether anybody looks at this short-time compensation pathway as a different option for some supplementation of payroll costs. So the state already theoretically has a short-time compensation program. The CARES Act explicitly devotes some funding to programs like that. So I just want to put that on your radar and say that, like many things, there's not a clear answer yet, but it's something to keep paying attention to. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. Really appreciate you also giving a more expanded view of what other options are available. Now I'm happy to introduce Andrew Rigie, again, president of the New York Hospitality Alliance and chair of the Office of Nightlife Advisory Board, and a great advocate and a truth teller about where we're at, what is it that we're looking at as far as the SBA and other opportunities, and what else can the industry do to make sure it's getting what it needs.
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, everyone. And pardon, I have a 4.5-year-old as well that keeps running back in and out of the room. So I guess this is the new way many of us are working. But yeah, so I'm Andrew Rigie. I'm wearing really 2 hats today, both in my role at the Hospitality Alliance as well as the chair of the Nightlife Advisory Board. Through the Nightlife Advisory Board, I want everyone to know I have been in direct contact with Ariel, the whole team at the office, as well as Small Business Services and many others on a regular basis, really acting as a conduit for your information and making sure that it gets to the right people. I'm a strong believer that the American economy and New York City's economy will not fully recover unless nightlife, restaurants, bars, clubs are not at the center of that recovery. And I know everyone is working around the clock really hard to make sure that we can not only control this pandemic and save lives and support people, but also make sure that we can save the lives of our small business community. So what we've been doing through the Hospitality Alliance, I hope many of you receive our emails. If not, you can sign up at the nycalliance.org. That's the nycalliance.org. We're making sure that you're all informed. This pandemic has had extraordinary and disastrous impact on your business. And one thing that you crave and need is information. So we, with our partners, both in government and out of government, I've been sending information about all different rules, laws, regulations. Liz Laddick mentioned a few when it comes to either paid sick leave or the other requirements under the law. So we'll continue to make sure we have that information for you. And again, we understand that because things are moving so quickly and it continues to be a fluid and ever-evolving situation, that information that may have been relevant yesterday may not be in the coming days. So we want to stay timely on that. Also making sure that our industry has a voice in the halls of government and the media, because as you are all scrambling to try to save your businesses and keep your as many people employed and hopefully bringing them back when you are able to reopen, that we need to have a unified and singular voice. So the Office of Nightlife, Small Business Services, Consumer Affairs, and really all levels of government from local to the federal are getting a singular message, or at least a message that's saying, this is what we need as small business owners. If we're going to reopen and we are going to rehire our people, these are the types of policies that we need. So, for example, the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, we understand positive intent. We also understand that SBA is the one agency that's going to help roll this out, but they were not the lawmakers behind it. So we continue through our advocacy at the Hospitality Alliance and elsewhere is to make sure that there can hopefully be a few changes, potentially in the fourth round of stimulus. Two of those major changes to the PPP would be, one, allow that loan to be converted into a grant if the monies are used by the end of the year. We recognize that our businesses here in New York are closed down and we do not know when you're going to be able to open. So there have been some concerns among business owners about hiring all of their employees back now by the end of June, but then not needing them by the end of June. And what do you do? Also, we recognize in places like New York City, we have very high commercial rents, and the 75% labor allocation and the 25% rent utility allocation within the PPP doesn't make total sense for a lot of your businesses. So if we are able to use more than 25% of that loan for rent, we know that would be really helpful. As Commissioner Bishop mentioned earlier, issues with insurance policies. Many of the policies for business interruption do exclude viruses and pandemics, but their policies are not clear. And they should pay out for civil authority, meaning basically the government closing down your business. So we're working with some national groups. There's a DIG, the Business Interruption Business Insurance Group, talking about different policies to help the insurers come to the table and pay out these interruption claims. We also know rent is a big issue. So how can we collectively as an industry and a city and a nation deal with the issue of businesses being unable to pay their rent while they are being required to close? Deferrals are great, but at some point, businesses are going to have to pay. And for many small businesses, paying back multiple months of missed rent is not going to be realistic. So if we can't figure out all of these issues, we're going to have even more challenges. I'm confident collectively, if we work together, it's not going to happen overnight, but we will work through them because, as I said at the beginning, if our industry is not at the core of this recovery, then our greater economy and society is going to have challenges. So I'm happy to answer more questions, towards the end, but I do want to thank the city and the other folks on this call for being incredibly responsive. We're working through some very complex issues. They're not going to be solved overnight, but we hear your voice. Please continue to reach out to me in my capacity as the Hospitality Alliance, but as well as through the chair of the Nightlife Advisory Board. We have some incredible folks on that board as well, and we're making sure that your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns are all being communicated in a timely fashion to people that really care about working through these issues with us. And I'll leave it at that and happy to get into more specifics a little bit later in the discussion.
Thank you so much, Andrew, Greg, Beth, John. I don't know if we actually got John back yet. Kevin? Jose? I assume he'll be joining us again. He is Beth Goldberg's deputy director. So as long as we also have Beth, I think we're covered for SBA. Yes, everything, that is mentioned here is the fact of the matter. We don't have all the answers that everyone wants at this moment, but we do have a lot of questions and we do have people here to try and provide some answers. So I'm going to share some of the questions that we received again through multiple different sources, and these are the frequently asked questions. And then anyone is welcome to chime in from any of the offices. But in regards to SBA loans, what assistance is available for people to help fill out the PPP application form? Perhaps whether it be through SBA or even through SBS. I know SBS is really shifting the focus on trying to make sure that people are sort of getting the hand-holding that they need. Gregg, perhaps you could answer first, and then maybe Beth or John.
Sure. I think John might be on, but this has been really collaborative. So there's a number of resources. Not only do we have the sample form available online.
Yes, John.
We can hear you, John.
Yeah.
Yep. We have the sample form online. So if you are interested in what documentation, but just as a reminder, that program, the PPP, is specifically through your lender. So you are going through your lender in order to apply. But if you need help in terms of understanding what documentation you need, you can come to us. You go to SBDC, which is a Small Business Development Center. That's funded through the SBA. You can go through a WBC, which is a Women Business Center, or NBC, which is a Minority Business Center. There's a number of resources. We also have some of our CDFIs. These are community development financial institutions. These are the ones that typically lend to smaller businesses. They too have been operating in that space in terms of helping businesses understand what documentation you need. But it's very important, because this is where the fraud comes in. It's very important for everyone on this call to know that you can only apply for this program through a lender. That is a community bank, small bank, major bank, et cetera. And they will have the application process either if you have a business account, or if they're accepting new customers, they will tell you how to find the application.
Thank you. And I just want to mention one thing, that also all of these links and all of these guidelines we will be providing in the follow-up email. I'm sure you're all feverishly writing these down, but I want you also to be rest assured that we will be sharing them with you in our follow-up email.
I think Beth was
so
gonna ask.
Ariel, just to add to that, the only place that a lender can be found that is participating in the program is on our website at sba.gov, Paycheck Protection /fines, where you enter your zip code. If somebody is not listed in there, they are not, it's like Gregg said, it could be fraud and they're not participating in our program. Last week, the agency added nationwide 500 new lenders. So that's where you find the bank that is participating in the program, the lender.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And does the SBA have support services to also assist people who are applying for these loans?
As Gregg said, we're working with his network, and the federal government supports SCORE volunteers, the Women Business Centers, and the Small Business Development Centers. We'll send you a link to our resource guide, which has all of those partners listed in the in our brochure.
Okay.
So you could circulate that, okay?
Thank you. Yeah, we were getting a lot of questions about, really needing assistance to help navigate this. So it's great that we're able to provide that. How should businesses move forward if they were denied a loan?
Denied a loan. So I guess we'd need more information in terms of denied a loan from, if it's denied a loan from us, because our program was only meant as a stopgap. So we do have additional eligibility criteria. For example, you need to be in business for 2 years. You needed to have 25% loss of income. Looking back from January, February, and March, some of the listeners now probably didn't see a loss of income until March. So if you were denied because of those conditions, we would then connect you to either another lender that's still originating new loans, or we would provide you technical assistance for the economic injury disaster loan, which allows you to borrow up to $2 million. I'm sure John could tell you a little bit more about that. But that is sort of like the recourse for anyone that just recently started seeing losses and couldn't take advantage of some of our earlier programs.
So if they got declined, what they should probably do is first, I would tell them they should reach out to a small business development center, SCORE, or Women's Business Center, and find out why they got denied. And maybe it could be the way they filled out the application, could be they uploaded the wrong information. There could be many reasons why they got declined. But if you get declined on the economic injury disaster loan, you can make a decision to appeal them, and they'll review it again, and you'll get a reconsideration on it.
Also, if you applied on that economic injury loan before, let's say, March 30th, and you got declined, the SBA did loosen its parameters, and it could be worth resubmitting that application.
Okay, that's really good information. Thank you. The first come, first served nature of the programs has caused a lot of anxiety, only exacerbated by the bottlenecking that has made it difficult for people to apply. When can people realistically start to expect some economic relief?
So I could talk about the city's program. And again, I prefaced my opening comments by saying we just did not, and still do not have the capacity to really meet the need. This required a federal response, and we got the federal response. And I'm sure my partners in the SBA will talk about some of the things I've been advocating for, which is in future stimulus, additional funding for the existing programs. So that's number one. So we are still encouraging people to apply. I would be very surprised if there's not additional funding coming down the line. For our program, when we launched our loan program, it actually took us from pre-application to lender to disbursement. It took us a week. However, that is out the window. And I just want to be transparent with anyone because of the volume. We've had over 10,000 applications. So we are now processing on a first come, first serve. And we will be in communication with folks as we figure out different ways we can connect you to capital. So for those who submitted an application much later in the queue, we are working with other lenders to figure out who's participating in what and how we can make warm handoffs. I know everyone is looking for capital. We are all trying to work together to make sure that we address this unprecedented challenge. And as Andrew said, all of us, this is all new to us. We've had, disasters, we've had local disasters. We've never had a nationwide disaster. And that is, part of the frustration for all of us. And we are working as hard as possible to help you.
Thank you.
Right. So, the economic injury loans had over 3 million applications so far. We have, as part of the CARES Act, was given money to staff that up. So, for example, there's 7,000 people now working at our call centers and 600 underwriters. Just to give people an idea, nationwide, we do 60-some loans a year for about $30 billion. So this is, over 10 times the magnitude of what we've ever had to handle. And they're doing the best they can. We understand anecdotally from last week that people started to receive some money under the EIDL, part of the grant, and a few dollars on the loans. And we heard that there were a number of banks that started moving money out under the Paycheck Protection program.
That's great. Thank you for that clarity. How can businesses get status updates to know where they are in the queue? We've heard that this would help some businesses, help them to plan moving forward if they had any idea of where they were in the queue here. Is there a way?
There's an 800 number, which I will send to you. I'm not sitting at my desk because I have no power to talk to you. John, I don't know if you have the number. We understand. I heard from a client, just to give you an example, last week, this is where 7,000 people have been hired 24/7. Someone called during the daytime. They were given that they were number 1690 in the queue for the phone call, and their phone was answered in 1 hour and 2 minutes. So they have the ability to tell you what's happening with your loan at that phone number.
Okay.
John, are you still on?
The 800
Yeah,
number is 659-2955. But if you want information on your PPP loan, you're going to have to go directly to your lender for that one.
John, you broke up when you were given a number. If you can give everyone that number again.
Sure. It's 800-659-2955.
And,
That's for the advance and loan.
Sorry to cut you off, Beth. What Beth was saying was that that's only for the economic injury disaster loan. So if you applied for that, that's the number to call. If you applied for the Paycheck Protection Program, you have to go through your lender to get a status. For those who applied for any of our city program, you can email us at covid19biz@sbs.nyc.gov. If you go through the portal, you'll get some status updates, but to be perfectly blunt, they may not be helpful. They'll just let you know that we have the application. And I think what people are asking for is like, where am I in the queue? And we are working as quickly as possible to create some type of mechanism to allow you to know where you are in the queue. And until then, please email us at that email address, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.
I think knowing where you are in the queue is definitely something people want to know, but sometimes they just want to know that it was actually received correctly. So that is also helpful information to give some degree of peace, I think. We have a couple more SBA questions up front. I'm sorry, Beth, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm good. What should businesses do, or hospitality businesses do, if they're not allowed to reopen within the 8-week period of the PPP?
So I would suggest that they look at the economic injury disaster loan, which allows you to put 6 months of expenses in there. There is an interest payment of 3.75%, but the loan term is 30 years. So as John has calculated for people, if it's a $20,000 loan over 30 years with less than $100 a month repayment, of course you can estimate the magnitude. But the advantage of the EIDL loan is that it allows you to plan long-term into the fall. And the Paycheck Protection is, a short-term loan that is to keep people on staff. It doesn't include all your other expenses. Excuse me.
Was there another loan, I think the 504 or some other loan that maybe is not at the top of the list or on the radar that people could look into as well?
The 504 loan is for the purchase of a building or a co-op or a condo, commercial co-op, condo, or commercial building, where the borrower is owning, where the borrower is occupying either 51% of the space in an existing building or 60% of the space in a new building. That really looks at sections We participate with lender, but, I guess if someone, has a business that is booming because it's beta to what's happening to everybody else, they could look at that. But everyone's really geared right now on looking at what you had on February 15th and keeping you solvent for the short-term period,
So,
either through the payroll protection or the EIDL.
Okay, we'll stay focused.
John?
so another,
John wants to say
just to
something.
bring up something. So another thing that they have available to them, the SBA does have an SBA Express Bridge loan of up to $25,000. So while they're waiting for those applications to go through, they can go to their lender and apply for a bridge loan, and then you can repay your bridge loan with your SBA idle loan. But there's something else that the SBA is doing that is really helping small businesses. And so the SBA is making all payments for existing borrowers who have 7A, 504 microloans, where the SBA is paying all their principal and interest on those payments for those loans for the next 6 months.
Okay, so that's helpful and additional information as well. Again, it'll be in the email that we have.
Ariel,
Yes.
yeah, I would just add, and again, this is specifically related to these loans at this time, but as I mentioned earlier, and I wouldn't necessarily determine your immediate kind of action on loans based on this, but there is discussion for a fourth stimulus plan. And what I had mentioned is earlier, which would be very important for our industry, is to extend the time frame in which the loan is forgivable, adjust the amount that can be used for rent, utilities, and other expenses, as well as there has been discussion, and not that this will happen, but many groups are advocating for an increase in the amount of the loan. Currently is 2.5 times your monthly payroll. And there's also been discussion about increasing that amount. Whether or not any or all of that will happen is still up in the air. But we have heard, later in this month, hopefully there will be some sort of fourth stimulus that would better assist bars, nightclubs, and restaurants. So that's something to keep in mind. And with all of this, just making sure that you can fully understand all the different terms and conditions of what you are signing up for. And it sounds like all the folks on this call really know this stuff inside out. So just make sure you have, the proper conversations before jumping into one loan or another. I just think that's an important point to make.
Thank you. One clarifying question. How can people find the SBDCs or the Small Business Development Centers?
So we're going to send you a link to our resource guide, which will list everything in the New York District Office, which includes the 5 counties of New York City, Nassau and Suffolk, and the 7 downstate counties of the Hudson Valley, so Rockland, Orange, Westchester, Sullivan, Putnam, Ulster, and Dutchess. So if there's any business owner who lives outside of that area, if they let you know, we'll be happy to provide them, information to that district office and where they can go locally to seek help.
That's great. Thank you. Also, Gail Brewer commented and said that Columbia University Law School students under Professor Tim Wu will help small businesses. I think it's 5, employees or less, which is not maybe the majority of the people on this call. However, maybe they would entertain larger. But there are, at Columbia University, law professors are providing help to small businesses, and you can find out more about that at Gail G. Brewer at manhattanbp.nyc.gov. And also Pedro from Carlina Rivera's office, council member, said that small business development centers can be found at sba.gov/local-assistance, which is also very good information. Moving along, do rehired staff need to be the same people, or could a business that closed hire anyone of their choosing?
So are you talking about, I'm assuming you're asking about the Paycheck Protection Program. The only thing the
Yes.
bill really requires that you keep the same staffing level as you did previously.
The same staffing level, which, as we know, because really there are so many unanswered questions as far as when businesses will be allowed to open, at what rate, most likely gradual, although that's not clear. There might be capacity changes in order to be gradual. So these are some of the questions and I think concerns people are having. But as it stands right now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same people, just the same capacity of people.
Correct.
Okay. I guess, what should businesses do if banks are placing additional restrictions on top of the SBA requirements? Such as, are some banks, what we're hearing is that some are now requiring personal guarantees. Is there an issue around personal guarantees and these loans? Because I think people are having a lot of stress about, you know, how they will be personally implicated or liable for these funds if they can't pay it back.
So under the Personal Protection Program, the bill specifically states that there are personal guarantees on these loans. So I'm just telling me that.
You're just breaking up a little bit, so speak maybe a little louder and slower.
So the Paycheck Protection Program in the bill, it specifically states that they waived the personal guarantee portion of the loan. So there are no personal guarantees on these loans. Also, as long as you use the loan at least 75% towards payroll, 100% of the loan becomes forgivable.
So there's no situation where banks are adding additional restrictions or requirements that would be illegal, or are they allowed to do things like that?
So when you're talking about banks putting on additional restrictions, I assume they're talking about working with existing clients or having a credit card or some other restriction that they put on it. So there are banks that have put up some obstacles for small businesses, and we're aware of it, and we're working through that. And these are self-inflicted obstacles. There's not obstacles that the SBA has put into place. So, but I tell those people who are looking for additional lenders, we are adding new lenders each and every day. There are more lenders that are coming on and qualifying that are eligible PPP lenders. I would tell them to go to sba.gov/paycheck protection, put in their zip code, and look for new lenders that they may be able to help them or assist them.
Okay, thank you, John. I'm going to move into some labor employment issues. It doesn't mean at the end of this call, when we are taking on some clarifying questions from the audience, that more SBA, SBS questions won't also come in. So Liz, I hope the headset issue has been rectified with your child. Which workers are eligible for unemployment? Contract workers, part-time, full-time? What happens to those who are ineligible? I know you touched upon it a little bit. I just wanted to circle back a little.
I'm really glad that whoever posed that question was so specific. If everything else is as it should be, independent contractors are eligible, part-time workers are eligible, furloughed workers are eligible. These are all scenarios. Someone who doesn't have very much of a work history is eligible. Someone who, an independent contractor, a performer who had a contract to begin a new show in May that is now not going to happen is going to be eligible to apply for benefits to replace the wages they had expected to get, but now cannot get because of COVID. The only two sort of flat, like, we're sure you don't qualify in this case for unemployment is if you can telework. If you can telework from home, you are likely ineligible. Similarly, if you are on paid leave of any kind under the new state or federal law, you are not eligible yet, Presumably you may become eligible when your paid leave runs out, so don't think it's a forever thing. For folks who are ineligible, it's a real problem. As I mentioned, undocumented workers are not eligible, generally speaking. And so that's where we start to look for other sources of relief. And the city is maintaining a page that helps you depending on who you are, you know, how you're coming at the question, pointing you to places that are providing other kinds of loans, other kinds of supported, support from private dollars and other ways to help.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in. What we're hearing is there's a lot of owners who are also employees in their businesses, or employees who have a certain percentage of ownership in their bars. And so some working owners are being denied from unemployment due to owner status, even if they are on payroll. So what should they do in that situation? It seems tricky.
Yeah, so I want to be careful here and just be clear that I'm not giving you legal advice. But I think I mentioned earlier that one of the challenges in this moment is that while it's so great that we now are going to have expanded unemployment benefits for folks who wouldn't usually qualify, we still do not have a lot of the concrete details of what that's going to look like. And so I don't know whether DOL has really built out a robust set of criteria yet for folks to qualify under the expanded benefits. A couple things to do there. One is to appeal. Anyone who is denied benefits by state DOL is entitled to file an appeal and get more information as to why. Second, this is a little, again, we're waiting to see what the process is going to be, but the way DOL has set this up, everybody applies for the same program. That's step one. And for those who would not ordinarily be eligible, DOL has to find you ineligible under usual benefits before they review your application as applying under the expanded part of the benefits program. So it's possible that if you've received a denial of an initial regular unemployment eligibility application, it's possible that your application now needs to be reviewed under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, the expanded program. That's something where I would hope there'd be such information when you log in to your ny.gov account. But you know, call DOL, pester them, and make sure you get a clear answer on those questions.
Thank you. What should businesses do if they cannot or will not rehire employees because the employees will earn more with the unemployment insurance? What can they do? I guess Beth, as well as Liz and John, maybe even Andrew. The different programs seem to disincentivize the employees to return. And therefore, some businesses might not be able to become whole to the amount of employees. And what would you say to employees who perhaps are making more in unemployment, but their businesses need them to come back in order to be able to qualify for the loans?
Well, so I think it's important for everyone, workers and employers, to keep in mind that under ordinary circumstances, workers who receive benefits are required to be available to work and seeking work. Now, DOL is going to relax those requirements because for so many of us right now, it's impossible to go to work. But I think if for a worker, for an employer who has a situation where the worker is available, they don't have a COVID scenario problem, they're not caring for anyone, they're not sick, they don't have a kid at home who doesn't have daycare, down the list. If someone could show up at an essential business tomorrow and they're saying, no, I'd rather stay home, it's not clear that DOL would agree to continue funding benefits in that scenario.
Okay, that's clarifying. Thank you. Beth or John, or did anyone else want to chime in on that? I think that was a pretty good answer, but.
Yeah.
So we are actually just have about 21 minutes left. I do have so many questions, of course. And I just want to mention, we also do have another call tomorrow at noon that is specific to laborers and workers and freelancers. And Liz will be on that call as well tomorrow, thankfully. So we will be able to expand on the labor questions, and anyone on this call who has labor questions will also be able to attend. And we have a very big capacity, so feel free to join that call as well. You know, a lot of
Ariel, excuse me. I have to just tell you that John and I have to hop off in about 5 minutes. So we were called to another call at 1:15. So if you want to.
Yeah, I'll have Jose, who's been taking the Q&As that have been coming in live. Perhaps, Jose, you can do the most SBA directed calls so we can have Beth and John.
Sure. Here's a quick one for SBA from Justin Cantor. Can folks apply for both EIDL and PPP loans?
Yeah, so Justin can apply for both loans as long as he doesn't use the funds for the same purpose. So, for example, he can apply for the PPP loan and use it strictly 100%. There's nothing that requires them to only use 75%. And he can use the EIDL loan to pay back, such as interest, utilities, or any other payments that he wasn't able to pay due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Beth, maybe you could echo what he said, because we lost him a little bit there.
Okay, so what he was saying that you can apply for both loans. The PPP is, you know, very specific to payroll, and so that you cannot collect. You can apply for both loans, but if you're using the money for the same thing, you can only take one loan, right? There's a federal law that says you can't double dip. You can't even take Gregg's program and pay for, say you're paying for the same thing. So, you know, you might want to apply for your payroll under PPP, which will be forgiven for your payroll expense if you show that you use that. And you might want to use the EIDL loan for your rent or your interest, your health insurance, your utilities, the other allowable costs. You have to separate your sources and uses.
Separate your sources and your uses. Thank you. Jose?
Right?
Yes.
The question from Osita Uge, of your staff are independent contractors. Can you apply for paycheck protection?
So the people who are independent contractors are in business for themselves, and they need to apply for their own loans. And on Friday, I think the date was April 10th, the Payroll Protection Program opens up for 1099 employees.
Jose?
This is a question from Justin Carter. I was under the impression that the EIDL maxed out at $10,000. Is that correct? What is the maximum number on these loans?
On the EIDL loan, the loan is $2 million max for 30 years at 3.75%. The EIDL advance, which can become a grant, is up to a maximum of $10,000, and that's based on the number of employees. Under the Payroll Protection Act, the max is $10 million.
It's a question from Dave Rosen. Do we have to use the entire PPP loan to receive forgiveness? For example, if we receive a $100,000 loan, but only end up using $50,000, $37,500 for payroll and $12,500 for rent, is that $50,000 forgivable? So if they take out
so the whole amount,
100,000,
you have to use. So in order for it to be forgiven, there's Nothing else besides that you have to use at least 75% of that loan towards payroll. Can't be used towards any other process. So if you don't use 75%, the loan becomes a term loan. You don't prorate it over the amount you use for payroll. So it's either it's an all or nothing criteria. And can we just take one more question because we have to hop off after this one?
Sure.
Sure. This is a yes or no. For SBA loans, this is from Ramar. Can any nonprofit or business apply? Do 501c6s qualify?
As long as the not-for-profit is not a public not-for-profit, they should qualify. But what they should do is talk to their lender and discuss their situation with them to get better clearance.
So, Ms. Zander, my understanding is 501c3 not-for-profits are eligible, but 501c6 not-for-profits like trade associations or chambers of commerce are not. And I know from our position, we are advocating in the next round of stimulus to be included in that stimulus.
I just want to let Beth and John go. I would like to add that Beth and perhaps John as well, depending on Beth's electricity situation, will also be on the call for workers tomorrow. But I think, you know, we have the capacity. Anyone is welcome to join. It is going to be focused on worker and labor issues, but Beth and possibly John will also be on the call at noon tomorrow. Thank you both so much for your time. Go help some more people today, and we look forward to having you on our call tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. We also still have 15 more minutes. We still have Andrew, Liz, and Gregg with us.
And I could cover some of the questions on the SBA. We work closely together. And I'm also answering questions in the Q&A as people are answering other questions.
Okay. Do you have one question that may have come in that you feel like you want to answer right now? That came in?
No, most of it was SBA questions in terms of status updates. The one thing in terms of clarification, some people, I mean, sometimes it's messaging. The EIDL, the Emergency Economic Injury Loan, has a $10,000 grant, but it's up to $10,000. And on their website, they do say 3 days, but because of the large volume, they're not meeting those 3 days. So the best thing you can do is just call that 800 number, get a status update, and you know, that's the only sort of guidance that we're given right now.
Okay, thank you. Jose?
This is a question for Gregg. Has SBS started dispersing funds yet? And what is the time frame in which you will be dispersing funds for?
Yes, so that was one of the questions I saw as well. So for the grant, we have dispersed over $10 million, and we continue to work on applications that came in at the very last minute. So more to come there. For the loan, we've dispersed over $4.2 million. Again, because those are first come, first serve, we're still processing. So there's dollars out there, and I know folks are reasonably frustrated in terms of the communication, and we are working as hard as possible to try to get an answer for you in terms of where you're at, knowing that it's first come, first serve. And what we will not do is shut the door. So we are actually working on a strategy in terms of, for those who are not able to get connected to our loan fund, how we can connect them to either existing lenders that are participating in the federal programs or lenders in our network that are accepting new customers.
It's a question for Gregg. Are independent contractors covered under the New York City Employee Retention Program?
No. So we had, and that's one of the reasons why that program is now sunset. The Paycheck Protection Program was more robust and covered more businesses and larger businesses. Our program was designed for a different time, and we only focus on smaller businesses with 1 to 4 employees. And so now, as an independent contractor, we would connect you and help you understand the Paycheck Protection Program and help you apply either to your lender or a participating lender who's accepting new customers. The one challenge that we have seen with the PPP is that if you're an independent contractor and you're using your personal bank account, you are actually ineligible for the PPP. You had to have had a business bank account. So in that case, if you're looking for capital, we will try to connect you to one of our lenders.
This is a question from Loisant Gordon. Loisant has not received his PPP yet. Would it be best to have their staff apply for unemployment and just wait for the EIDL?
So for the, if you have applied for the PPP and I guess, and I'm not sure if Liz, you can jump in here, but if you cannot pay your employees, then I would, I would have them apply for unemployment. The way the PPP is designed is that when you do get it, then you'll be in a better position to then rehire those staff members. So that would be one of that would be the path, I guess, if you are struggling with cash flow.
Yeah, and I would add to that and say, I think it's been mentioned that the PPP is an 8-week program. I just want to make sure, I'm not sure if I was specific earlier. New York State ordinarily pays unemployment benefits for 26 weeks. The CARES Act puts an additional 13 weeks on top of that. So maximum period of time that someone can collect benefits currently under the state and federal unemployment laws is 39 weeks. So that is a longer period of relief. And let me also restate, part-time workers can still collect partial unemployment benefits. You have to make sure you're getting the math right because it's a little tricky, but that's another way to think about it. Keep folks on for much fewer hours and have them collect partial benefits.
This is a question from Doug Dreyer. What do we do if our lender is leaving us hanging on applying for PPP? Our bank had us sign a preliminary form, but will not allow us to apply until they call us, and they haven't called us back. It's been a week and they won't take calls. What should they do?
That's a good question. Again, I think what everybody's experiencing is just the enormous nature of this this pandemic and how it's impacting all of our operations. I would, if your lender has a process where they will call you back, the only thing I could say is just be patient. There are other lenders who are opening it up to new customers, but I strongly believe that they're also going to run into the same process issue in terms of capacity of managing new customers, and you're already in, quote unquote, in line. If possible, maybe reach out to them via email, see if you can get a status. But that is one of the biggest challenges we are all facing. Whether you're a large lender or a small lender, whether you're the city, the federal government, the need has been so great that it's been pushing all our response times beyond tolerable levels. And we are really working hard to try to address that.
It's a question from Eamon Harkin. There was a question before about personal guarantees for loans covered by the SBA's PPP loans, but did not cover the city's business continuity loan. They say that this loan is requiring a personal guarantee from the city's business continuity loan. What's the response to that?
Yeah, that is correct. And I'd mentioned that our loan, our continuity loan was just a stopgap. So there are things that we are, because it is, part of it, we examine whether or not the buyer, the lender, the person who's asking for the loan is credit worthy. And in some cases that might not be helpful for some of the smaller businesses. We know that, that is just one product. Again, as we look at one of the things that, I'll use this time to mention, as we look at where there are gaps, so there are probably individuals who may not have been able to be eligible for either our two products or the SBA products, et cetera. So we are also working on looking forward and advocating on the federal level for additional dollars to create and design programs that will be helpful for other customers. our loan does have a lower credit requirement, but does require you to have some type of guarantee and also been in business for 2 years.
Okay, this is a question from Francis Harris. For the PPP, when it says maintain staffing levels, does it have to be the same positions? In order to bring back our full staffing level, we may need to staff differently as we need to get creative with new revenue streams.
Yeah, John answered that question. Again, it's just the level. So if you had 10 employees pre-COVID, then you need to demonstrate that you have 10 employees by the end of the right now 8 weeks. But as Andrew mentioned, we are very supportive of in the next stimulus that there be a tweak to that, because one of the things we're working on is what a restart looks like. And some of you, as you know, and one of the biggest concerns we have is that until people feel comfortable just being out in a public setting, doesn't matter how much support we give our small businesses, especially in the nightlife industry, when you have an empty club or empty restaurant, you're still going to need additional support. And I think everyone on this call has said, whether we restart in June, it's not going to be 100% capacity. We're going to see a slow ramp up. We're going to need additional support from the federal government. I'm predicting probably till the end of the year to help businesses as they slowly recover to augment some of their losses, because we definitely know that some people will be a little bit hesitant to be in crowded situations. So just wanted to make sure people know that we are, working on a startup plan as well.
So we only have 5 more minutes left on the call. I really do want to make sure that we do spend some attention on what we don't know, really, and also to fold Andrew Rigie in about how we can really engage the nightlife community, the nightlife army, for lack of a better word. We know that nightlife are some of the most organized people. They know how to produce, they know how to promote, they know how to network, they know how to activate. And I think, sorry, I'm on my way to the hospital over here, so I get a lot of ambulances. But we want to be able to talk to how people can make sure that their voices are heard right now, to not only communicate to us, but to the legislators. I know you, as a lobbyist and an advocacy group, have perhaps some guidelines. And then I also, before we even got to that, I don't know if, I know there are a lot of questions around rent and rent freezes and moratoriums. The mayor did speak this morning. I don't know if anyone really got a chance to listen in, but there were some updates. The eviction moratorium has been extended for 2 months, which I think is important information. He did propose a rent freeze for rent stabilized residents, and also made a plea to the state to be able to allow for landlords to use the security deposits that many landlords have 2, sometimes 3 months of rent sitting in escrow that could be very valuable. So these are the mayor's words today. The rent issue is not lost upon anyone here. There are a lot of unanswered questions. Things are unfolding. And Andrew, perhaps you could share some more information about how we can make sure we are using the power of the voice and the organizing power of nightlife to make sure that these issues are incorporated into the new stimuluses.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. I mean, I'd say it's like the old saying, don't just talk about, be about it. Now's the time to be active. We have our local government, so we have our city council members, the mayor, and many of the agencies that are represented on this call. Again, we have the state legislature, the governor, and then the federal government, and our members of Congress and U.S. senators. So these issues are complex, and they kind of run through all levels of government. So the first thing I would say, if you have a relationship with anyone in elected office, make sure you are reaching out to them, whether it's probably best via email at this point, but on social media, if you're on Twitter as well. Make sure your voice is heard. Like I said before, our industry is so vital to any type of recovery, and not just the economics, but the socialization of the city of New York and what we are going to look like as a city when we come out of this. Commissioner Bishop, mentioned we do not yet know what consumer behavior is going to look like. So we really need business owners to have their voice heard. I guess mentioned earlier, going to our website, the nycalliance.org, the nycalliance.org. We have a page there for COVID-19. There's a link you'll see called Take Action Now. It makes it real easy for you to reach out and contact your elected officials with a list of different agenda items and policy ideas we believe would be really helpful to industry. These policy ideas have been developed with the feedback of the industry, and it's constantly being updated. I can also put that on social media if you're on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Rigie, that's at Andrew R-I-G-I-E, or at the nycalliance.org. And I'd really say stay activated, let your voice be heard, because we need to control the narrative industry. We need to make sure that the policies that work for you are known, and we are thankful and appreciative of them, but we also need to let people know when policies don't fully work. And how they could be adjusted and modified in a more appropriate way for our industry. So it's really about staying engaged. Sign up for our newsletter. We have been sending out email action alerts, making it very easy for you to click a few buttons and have your voice heard. Stay on these town halls. You see Commissioner Bishop, Ariel, Liz Vladeck, and everyone else, representatives from SBA. They want to hear what you have to say. So again, I know I've repeated myself 5 times, but it's stay active so your voice can be heard. Get involved with different organizations, whether it's groups like the Hospitality Alliance, your local chambers of commerce, the business insurance group, which I mentioned earlier. All of this info can be found at our website. And if you have any questions, you can email us, which is info@the-nycalliance.org. We, like the others, are inundated by calls or emails, but we're doing our absolute best to get back to everyone with meaningful information as soon as we possibly can. Your ideas and thoughts help us form our strategy and the policies that we advocate for. And now is the time more than ever. Our industry needs to come together, not only to deal with the immediate crisis at hand, but also what is the more medium and long-term plan to get our industry back on the track going to look like. And it's only going to happen if we're all together united as an industry working hand to hand. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's incredibly helpful, inspiring, and true. We know that there are issues that are unique to nightlife, and therefore we need unique solutions. And we do have another call tomorrow. This conversation obviously is not over. It's just the beginning. It's the beginning of the crisis, and hopefully very soon will be the beginning of the recovery as well. I invite you all to join the call tomorrow, and I want to thank Gregg Bishop and Liz Vladeck and Andrew Rigie and Beth Goldberg and John Milano from SBA. All of you have been magnificent. Something Gregg is saying, that's one of the gaps we want to address in the future. Yes, so yeah, this is the beginning.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I said that to everyone. It was a question about undocumented business owners.
Okay.
So that is definitely
I read it out loud. My apologies.
Yeah, sorry.
It is 1:33. I know everyone has a lot to do. Reach out to the Office of Nightlife. Reach out to SBS, SBA, the Alliance. We will have a call tomorrow. We will be back in touch with you. And we're here every day for you. And we hear you. We will share your voice to government and bring government's voice to you. Thank you so much to everyone who attended. We look forward to hearing your feedback and future questions. Thank you so much, everyone.